Hey folks, I'm going to run you through some distinctions right now in a relatively short video that will also contain video clips from George Carlin and Andrew Dice Clay, who are kind of important to the history of comedy and thinking about ethics and how much is too much with comedy. So it's going to be directly relevant to the Louvel Anderson and Maisha Cherry interview and to the Claire Horisk piece on when racist jokes might be worse than racist statements. The Clay piece, I just want to warn you, is going to involve homophobic language. And the Carlin piece is going to involve some swearing. Okay? All right. So, let's get to screen sharing. Okay. Now, one of the things that I want you to look for in George Carlin's famous comedy piece on slurs and swears is when a word is offensive and people are like clutching their pearls, like, oh, that's just not normal to say that. And when it is offensive because someone is being harmed and it's reinforcing negative attitudes and kind of giving license or permission in the way that we've talked about previously, all right? So how is this like or unlike what Horisk and Anderson say about jokes and communities of practice, about neutral versions of nasty words, and what does Carlin's routine add to our understanding of slurs and swears?
Sometimes, well, hell yeah. Sometimes it's okay, but not all the time. And they're the only words that seem to have that restriction. I mean, there are a lot of words you can say whenever you want, you know. Pneumonia! Nobody gives you a lot of... All right, you can't yell it in the hospital a great deal, but what the hell? There are words that you can say, no problem. Topography! No one has ever gone to jail for screaming topography. But there are some words that you can go to jail for. There are some words that we just have decided we will not say all the time. Sometimes, okay. If you're running through the jungle chasing somebody that we're at war with, you can holler them. If you're shooting a criminal, it's okay. It's the all-American thing. Dirty fucking crook. But if you're with the bishop's wife at lunch, it's better not to ask for the goddamn lettuce. You know what I mean? It's just like we've decided there'll be some words we won't say all the time. And I was just trying to find out which words they were. For sure. All of them. I wanted a list. Because nobody gives you a list. That's the problem. They don't give you a list. Wouldn't you think it'd be normal if they didn't want you to say something to tell you what it is? Nobody even tells you when you're a kid what the words are that you're supposed to avoid. You have to say them to find out which ones they are. Shit! Oh, fuck! That's two. Oh, Ma, that's enough trial and error, huh? Please, Ma, give me a list, huh? All right, you're 6 years old now, and here's the list of words your dad and I don't ever want to hear you say. Oh, hey, thanks, Ma. Boy, that's going to save me an ass kicking or two. Yeah, you never know what's going to be on the list. Because it's always somebody else's list. You didn't make that up. Somebody told you that shit. They told you better not say that. So you gotta, and you don't know what's going to be on their list. God, people's lists even change from day to day. Some people on Friday night got a list, you know, about 2 or 3 words. Sunday morning, goddamn, there's like 27 words. These are the same people 2 days later. Different list. So you got to kind of watch out what you're going to believe from them. The trouble is, I was trying to find out what these words might be, and I wanted to know the ones that you could never say on television. I mean the filthy words that are always filthy. There are a lot of these little two-way, double-entendre words that have two meanings, words that are okay part of the time. I call them like part-time filth. Some of these words, they're only 50% dirty. You have words like ass. Ass is hardly even a dirty word anymore, but it has a few meanings that you can't say on television. That's what I was talking about. What can you say on television? That's another one of those places where we can't use these words all the time. But some of them are all right some of the time. Ass is all right on television. You can say on television things like, well, you've made a perfect ass of yourself tonight. But you can't say, hey, let's go get some ass. Bitch. Bitch is another word like that. Same kind of word. It's only dirty part of the time. Depends on what you mean by bitch. You might be the lady from the San Diego Zoo visiting one of the Tonight shows, and you might just have a bunch of little canines with you there. One of them is a female. You say, there's the bitch, Johnny, and it's okay, fine. Just don't refer to the singer the same way. That's all. Is that bitch going to do another number? Yes. Animals are fine on those two-way words, and that's it. That's what I was trying to find. The words that were always dirty, not just part of the time, but completely filth. Well, in looking for these words, I kept finding new categories. We have so many ways of describing these dirty words. Well, we have more ways to describe dirty words than we actually have dirty words. That seems a little strange to me. It seems to indicate that somebody was awfully interested in these words. They kept referring to them. They called them bad words, dirty, filthy, foul, vile, vulgar, coarse, in poor taste, unseemly, street talk, gutter talk, locker room language, barracks talk, bawdy, naughty, saucy, raunchy, rude, crude, lewd, lascivious, indecent, profane, obscene, blue, off-color, risque, suggestive, cursing, cussing, swearing, and all I could think of was shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. That's all I had. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. That was my original list. I knew it wasn't complete, but it was a starter set, you know? Shit, piss, fuck, yes, WBAI is the one who played them. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. Now that was the original list. We've added a few words since then. We've added fart, turd, and twat. And I know there are some other words that many of you are wondering about, why they haven't been considered, why they haven't shown up on the list thus far. We're looking at them all very closely. Some of your favorites might make the list this year. Asshole, ball bag, hard-on, piss hard, blue balls, taint, nookie, snatch, box, pussy, pecker, peckerhead, pecker tracks, jism, joint, donecker, dork, poontang, cornhole, and dingleberry. Dingleberry, a very popular word. And to my way of thinking, dingleberry, a rather innocent-sounding word. Dingleberry sounds Christmassy to me, you know. Let's put one on the tree, Dad.
All right. So, one of the things about this famous routine, of course, is that, Carlin would get in trouble for saying these things. If he went on a radio show and said them, he would get in trouble. They'd have to bleep them out. Sometimes the network that he was on could be fined if he said them. So one of the things that he does in this routine that's really quite nice, in addition to trying to define the words, is sort of lay out how important it is to figure out who's defining which words you can't say, what context matters to which words you can and can't say, and so forth, which is why I like this as a kind of ethical text about comedy. All right, up next is the distinction between punching up versus punching down and the ethics of humor. So the Good Men Project is a nice website to check out. It's a bunch of dudes trying to think about what it means to be a good dude. And they describe this distinction this way: a tradition in comedy that says always punch up, never punch down. That is to say, don't attack people who are already marginalized. Now, this comment was made today based on some controversies that have happened in the past in comedy. which are sort of embodied in the work of Andrew Dice Clay and then George Carlin's responses to Clay. So we just saw Carlin. He's not afraid of dirty words. What he is against is a certain kind of violation of ethics about punching up versus punching down. So I'm going to play for you in a little bit Andrew Dice Clay's comedy, and then I'm going to play for you George Carlin's response. Before we do that, I want to point out that punching up and punching down is not as simple as either the Urban Dictionary definition here makes it seem, or this definition from the Good Men Project, because hierarchies are really complex. So what if Jeff Foxworthy, a white man who has a rural accent, mocks Elizabeth Warren, a white woman for college professor, now a PhD holding senator, recently a candidate for president, and is mocking her for how certain she is that she knows what is right? He's below her in terms of the presumed stereotypical educational hierarchy, but he's above her in terms of gender hierarchy. He's below her in terms of stereotypes about rural folks, right? And stereotypes about elitist, quote unquote, college professors. So how do we make sense of this? They're the same level in terms of race. So folks from the country, we know, we've talked about in this class in the past, are often demeaned as stupid, sometimes based on accent alone, whereas women are often demeaned as unfit for leadership, as too bossy, shrill, nagging, correcting men the way that teachers correct children, etc. So is Foxworthy punching up or punching down if he critiques Elizabeth Warren? So I just want to complicate this issue of punching up versus punching down for you. But now we're going to go into kind of a simple version of it, all right? So we're going to watch a clip from Andrew Dice Clay. This contains highly homophobic language, which could be difficult to watch and listen to. So I want you to know that before we go on. Note the crowd reactions as you watch. And note also, just for your record, that his humor about women is similarly offensive. So one of the things we're going to discuss in forums is, are audiences doing anything wrong by laughing at this? And does laughing at this communicate some kind of message? All right.
The only thing I like about cops is the mirrored glasses. This way I could comb my hair as I write out the ticket, so it ain't that bad. I don't see too many faggots in Philly, you know? Out in L.A., Manhattan, you got them all over the place. Brooklyn, we don't have any gay people. They're all dead. All we got is a big sign that says, "Welcome to Brooklyn, fourth largest city in America," with this dead fag hanging off the pole. They're not from this planet, let's face it. I don't see how any man could look at another guy's hairy ass and want to bang it, you know? I see a guy with a hairy ass, I want to give it a wash and blow dry, that's the extent. They're not from this planet, they're from Faggotron, come on. And they're always on parade. They march up and down the street with t-shirts and flags. I want money for AIDS disease. Beautiful. I want money for a new fucking car. I ain't marching up and down the street. Get a job, butt slammer. Find something else you like other than the Hershey Highway, you know?
All right. So there's more to this clip, but it's more of the same. I don't think we particularly need to watch more of it to understand. Here's how George Carlin responded to the humor of people like Andrew Dice Clay in particular.
I would defend to the death his right to do everything he does. The thing that I find unusual, and it's not a criticism so much, but his targets are underdogs. And comedy traditionally has picked on people in power, people who abuse their power. Women and gays and immigrants are kind of, to my way of thinking, underdogs. And, he ought to be careful because he's Jewish. And a lot of the people who want to pick on these kind of groups, the Jews are on that list a little further. You got women, gays, gypsies, blah, 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 and then suddenly you find Jews. And
suddenly Andrew's arrested.
Yeah, so, obviously he should do what he wants. And
why does he get away with it, do you think, then?
Well,
we have never laughed at jokes about the
Well, he's
poor.
appealing. I think he's appealing largely. I think his core audience are young white males who are threatened by these groups. I think a lot of these guys aren't sure of their manhood because that's a problem when you're going in through adolescence. You know, could I be? I hope I'm not one of them. And the women who assert themselves and are competent are a threat to these men, and so are immigrants in terms of jobs and the
So that's why we as an audience then will laugh.
you say we. I don't think you're.
I mean,
in
I don't know.
But
I mean,
think
the
you're
collective we.
I think that's what is at the core of that experience that takes place in these arenas is a certain, a sharing of anger and rage at these targets. And I'm sure Andrew isn't that angry at them. I'm sure he's playing it as a comic.
All right. So there's a lot more to be said about this kind of issue, but this is enough to get us started with the distinction between punching up and punching down. So I'm going to leave it here, and we'll see each other on the discussion forums or in the seminar hours where we can talk about this more. All right. Thanks for your attention, and see you around.